What's up, gun enthusiasts? Greg Rowe Show Tactical. If you have not been paying attention to a lot of stuff that's going on YouTube right now with like Valhalla and the Anti-Hero podcast, they're going after John McPhee, Shrek, the sheriff of Baghdad, pretty hard over the last week or so, I would say. I'm one of those people that in the past was really a fan of John McPhee. And I'll sort of get into the kind of aftermath of people like him, people like Tim Kennedy, people like, DJ and Cole and GBRS and Mike Glover and all that sort of thing here at the end of the video. But this stuff was, for me personally, like really, I don't know, it's really hard stuff to read, really hard stuff to hear. If you don't know what I'm talking about, if you go look at the Valhalla VFT YouTube channel, he has a video that's like, the king on his throne or the king falls off his throne or something of that nature, that he is talking about, John McPhee's service record, his whole history and past in the Army, goes into detail about him not actually being a sergeant major, not being a Green Beret, having, those titles sort of stripped from him, having his, clearance and everything sort of taken away from him due to some pretty heinous activities. And really, I guess where this comes in is it really isn't so much like hearsay. You'll see a lot of stuff on YouTube with all these guys in the special forces and whatnot. It's sort of turned into TMZ. And a lot of guys are like, this guy said this guy, whatever. But, on that video, he goes and pulls actual service records, letters, things that he actually got a hold of, from the Army and sort of lays it all out there and proves that these things were indeed things that happened. And I think that that's sort of where things change, right? When you go from he said, she said to, actually showing proof and whatnot, you sort of have to flip your mind and go, okay, this isn't so much this, it's now this. And in that video, he goes on to talk about how John, was physical with some lady. She was married and he was sleeping with her, and then, I guess had, slept with her or something when she was incapacitated, and then emailed her from his military email, something along the lines of, I hope you think I'm not a rapist or something like that. So it's not very good stuff at all. It really paints a different picture of the John McPhee that we all have, come to know and love, at least most of us, throughout, his own training videos, the things that he posts, the different, podcasts and whatever that he's been on, especially in the last year, Megyn Kelly, Sean Ryan show, things like that. So if you haven't had a chance to go check that out, I will post the link to that video in the description below so you can check that out if you want to. I think it's, maybe 15, 20 minutes long, something of that nature. So, somebody for me that had, I didn't serve in the military. I'm not a, law enforcement officer or anything like that. I'm just somebody who, enjoys shooting, enjoys firearms, enjoys training, enjoys, buying gear and builds and things like that, that, I can kind of, present to you the average, shooter or whatnot to kind of show you what things I like, what things I'm, using, carrying, have used, etc. And so when you see these guys like the Mike Glovers, and you see the guys like the Sean Ryans, and you see the guys like the DJ Shipleys and the Tim Kennedys and the John McPhees and all this stuff come out, and not only are they posting content and giving you information, they're reviewing gear, they're telling stories, they're they have these collaborations and whatnot, and it was really there for a long period of time. Pretty cool stuff. I personally really enjoyed it. But then you start seeing some of these things and you start going, well, maybe this isn't exactly how it's coming across, or maybe this person isn't exactly who I think they are. And, realistically, Tim Kennedy got called out, for being the biggest grifter ever, for most of the things he has been going around and telling, and what he's been selling have been lies. He's been called out on it. He's, admitted to a lot of it. And I think people are kind of at the same point in their lives where they sort of look at him the same way. And then, you had the Mike Glover stuff where he started Fieldcraft Survival, which was, extremely successful there for a while. And then all of a sudden there's the court case with the physical abuse with his spouse. And then, he gets out, and then there's something with his kids and all this stuff. And it's basically, ruined Fieldcraft Survival. Mike, I know, still has like the Mike Force podcast and still has his own YouTube channel, which he posts certain things here or there, but it's not at the level or the content or whatever, at the level that it was, when Fieldcraft Survival was, running and kind of at its peak. Same thing can be said for GBRS. They had the thing with the employee. I know people are still kind of split on that. They had the thing with, the split from, their original partner. They have, DJ went on and explained a lot of things about his life in depth on the Sean Ryan show. And, I give credit to guys who, messed up or are not afraid to admit their faults or, whatnot, in hopes that maybe, being honest, will help them kind of clear their conscience and be a better person, and maybe give other people who may be going through certain things or maybe forced or are faced with certain things in the future, maybe giving them some advice on things to maybe avoid. So, I give him credit for being able to do that. But again, if you're a husband and you love your wife and you're a father and you love your kids, and you hear some of the things he was saying about, cheating on Patsy and all these kind of things for a long period of time, and, just not, being a real piece of shit human being, I know he's kind of come out the backside of that, so you got to give him credit. But, you just kind of start stacking these things on top of each other, and you're just like, what's going on, right? And then you get the whole weird post about the 320, which he was like, unless this gun goes off, I don't want to hear it, and it's just like, okay, dude, what's going on there? And then, you have the Shrek stuff that just came out. A lot of these guys really aren't necessarily who I guess we thought they were. And while they did serve and they did some great things and they deserve credit for the things that they did, a lot of them are, fabricating or making things, seem bigger or better or whatnot than they used to. And this to me goes back to just how much the community has changed, right? My great uncle, James H. Fields, was awarded the Medal of Honor from General Patton. He was the first soldier to receive the Medal of Honor on the battlefield in Rencourt, France. When he served, General Patton wrote about him in his book, War as I Know It. And he didn't really, according to my stepdad, he didn't really talk about anything. He didn't really want to talk about things. He didn't really want to be like paraded around as a hero and used as this like pawn to, continue the war efforts and stuff like that. And, really got tired of it and got to the point where he drank himself to death and died. He sold his Medal of Honor for booze and then got a new one, got it replaced and sold that one as well. It was just not in a great place. So I do like, these guys being able to sort of talk through things and realize that mental health is so important. It's a big thing. But on the flip side of it, these guys weren't using, the military was trying to use them to create money and create, sympathy and support and whatnot. But these guys back then weren't doing it themselves, right? They weren't coming back and creating YouTube channels and writing books and all this stuff and going on TV shows and podcasts and all this sort of thing to profit from that. And in order to profit from that, some of these guys are then having to exaggerate what they did, their position, in a certain, military, where, it'd be the Army, the Navy, the Marines, whatever. And that's sort of where, to me, I'm a little bit turned off. I would prefer you to just, maybe talk about certain things, do some training. But when you start getting into what you did and what you didn't do and how many kills you had and stuff like that, and calling yourself a badass and all this kind of stuff. To me, at least the way that I view life and have been taught and things that I've seen, those are sort of the times when you have to kind of question a person, because if you really are a badass and you really are this and that, like, you don't need to say it. You don't need to tell me that. If other people say it, I'm like, okay, cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a big hockey guy, and Wayne Gretzky's called the Great One, and he didn't give himself that nickname. And when he's asked who the greatest player is, sometimes he'll give love to Gordie Howe or Bobby Orr or Mario Lemieux or whatever, but he never says I'm the greatest player, right? Because he just lets everybody do it for him, and it's more effective that way. It seems more real. So I'm not a huge fan of these guys doing that. I just wish I wish they would shut up. And if you did something and you're going to talk about it, just be honest about it. Don't exaggerate what you did in order to get clicks or fame or make more money or whatever. It's lame to me. And I think that Shrek McPhee is the latest in that sort of saga that you're just like, dude, what the fuck, right? Had a lot of respect for him before, but in hearing some of these things that are being reported by people who served with him, the things that I've seen, the documents and stuff like that, like, not a lot of stuff lines up. And if you really watch that Sean Ryan show now, it's sort of hard to watch. What's the word I'm looking? Painful. It's a painful watch, because you're just like, dude, he seems like he's just making shit up, because it seems a little bit more obvious now when we kind of see and know what we know. So I just wish these guys would shut up. If you are asked about a certain thing, if you want to talk about it, fine, but just be honest about it. Don't exaggerate it. Like, everybody's trying to be, John Rambo or John Matrix from Commando and just be this one-man wrecking crew that's doing this and that. And it's hard to sift through the bullshit and hard to know what to believe and what not to believe. So just be honest. And sort of getting into my last point of this whole thing is, if you're willing to make things up, and you're willing to not be honest, and you're willing to exaggerate this or twist this or whatever, like, what in your life aren't you willing to not be honest about, right? And this goes a lot into a lot of these guys nowadays, the the Mike Glovers, the DJ and Cole, the Tim Kennedy's. I'm sorry, not Tim Kennedy. What's the other Kennedy? I can't think of his name. He's the one that is the Smith & Wesson ambassador. Travis Kennedy. Sorry, I had a brain fart there for a second. You watch these guys, even Sean Ryan, you watch these guys, and years ago, when I was first starting to watch Sean Ryan and Vigilance Elite, he was down living in Florida. He was doing a lot of things with at this place called Wex Gunworks, doing EDC stuff, doing, gun comparisons and training stuff like Andrei Arlovsky and all this kind of stuff. This is way back. This is like 10, 12, 13, 14 years ago. Way before the Sean Ryan show, way before all this other stuff, right? And he was carrying, either a Glock 19 or a Glock 43. Most of the guys that he was, doing EDC dumps with were carrying Glock 43s. He had a video that he did with somebody that was like Shield versus the Glock 43 and all this kind of stuff. And, now he's all SIG, right? And you look at Mike Glover, same thing. He's carrying Glock 19s. He had a, Triarch Systems Glock 43 that he was carrying and showing all these things with these videos. DJ Shipley even did, videos on the GBRS channel when he was still blurring out his face and doing EDC pocket dumps, in which he has a Glock 19 with an agency arm syndicate slide on it and all this kind of stuff. And now they're all SIG. You look at Travis Kennedy, same thing, right? All of his training videos from, 2-3 years ago, 4 years ago, he's running, Glock 19, Glock 43X, and now all of a sudden he's all, Smith & Wesson because, he's an ambassador and all that stuff. And it's like, if you're willing to sell your soul for money and, go from, this being honest about this is what I like, this is what I carry, this is what I trust, to now this is the the product, this is the company, this is the whatever. Like, again, what aren't you going to lie about? What aren't you going to be honest about? And so that kind of stuff really kind of bothers me. The shilling, right? If you're a Glock fan, be a Glock fan. You know, don't say, oh, we're not getting any money from SIG, but all you're doing is pumping up SIG products. And before we have you, you know, showing us all, that you're carrying a Glock, right? So just be careful of, you know, who you're watching, who you're getting your information from, and just pay attention, right? Don't necessarily buy the salesman type stuff that they're giving you. Go back and watch the videos. All these guys were Glock guys, like all of them. And now 90% of them are SIG guys. You know, Travis Kennedy is, you know, Smith & Wesson because he's an ambassador. That's all he shoots now. But just pay attention, because it's really easy to get caught up in all the nonsense and all the BS and all the hype. And these guys are getting paid money from these companies to try and sell products to you so that you yourself will go out and buy them so they can get a little kickback. So just be careful. I got some other videos coming down the pipe here. I just wanted to sort of bring this up because this is something that's been going on here. And, you know, I've kind of been following it, and I didn't make a video. But, you know, now that we're kind of coming to a head with this Shrek McPhee stuff, I'm just like, what in the fuck is going on? So, just be careful. That's why I try not to lie to you. That's why I try and be honest on this channel. I don't take paid promotions. Everything that you see on this channel that I talk about or show or whatever is stuff that I bought with my own money, and I'm going to give it to you, you know, real and raw, as I see it, because I don't see the point in lying or shilling. So that's it for me. Again, check the link in the description below. I'll throw that Valhalla video down there so you can see the Shrek McPhee stuff that he shows on camera, the documents and things that he has about what happened, and him sort of getting demoted and not retiring a sergeant major and not retiring a Green Beret. It kind of goes against everything that he's been going on these podcasts and saying, which is a lot of stuff that we're finding out about a lot of these guys in the special forces community, right? It's really turned into TMZ, and a lot of these guys just are saying things and talking and exaggerating because they're trying to build their brand and they're trying to make money. And to me, it's kind of lame. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Be on the lookout for other stuff that I have coming. And until the next one, I'm out of here.